BioWare General Manager Casey Hudson released a blog post this February 11 to talk about the current state of Anthem as well as what they're planning in the next coming months. Now let's go back briefly to discuss what happened with the game as well as the improvements BioWare made last year. Guys, Anthem isn't dead. Anthem's launch has been rocky to say the least. Issues started happening when different release schedules were communicated depending on the purchase packages that the players got. Because of this, some players started early on February 15, while others had to wait until February 22. Bugs after bugs also came out. Some were fun for the community because it increased the loot they received and enabled them to customize their javelins further. These, however, were cut short within 24 hours when BioWare immediately released patches to fix these bugs. The load times were also horrendous, which prompted BioWare to release another patch 2 days early. Objectives were very repetitive for the game. Moving from one point to the next always required the same action. TTK was also too long that it didn't sustain the attention span of players, while enemies just stood there waiting to be shot at. Plus, you couldn't see their projectiles, so it wasn't possible to anticipate their attacks. Open world was next to non-existent, since exploration was limited to just one map, although the environment was beautiful at times. Anthem was just empty. There was no real endgame content and no meaningful loot. Players even dodged from getting said loot for fun. One of the biggest controversies was Jason Schreier's Kotaku article, which exposed the toxic and mismanaged environment in BioWare. A work ethic where massive crunch was what made Dragon Age Inquisition Game of the Year. It was very unfortunate where some developers wished that Inquisition would fail for BioWare to finally realize that this was not how teams should finish games. The trade-off was too massive at the expense of the sanity of others. It also didn't help that through 7 years of Anthem's development, multiple changes on what the game should be piled on top of each other, which resulted in the online multiplayer looter-shooter we now know. With regard to Casey Hudson's blog post, he said, "Over the last year, the team has worked hard to improve stability, performance, and general quality of life while delivering 3 seasons of new content and features." True enough, we've seen quality of life improvements such as being able to access main missions from the new expedition screen instead of going back to the main hub in Fort Tarsis. There was also this issue with multiple loading screens as we did that. And also another big update was being able to change your Javelin loadouts during missions, even in mid-combat, instead of going back to Fort Tarsis to do this. In terms of seasons, BioWare released 3, namely Cataclysm, Season of Skulls, and Icetide. These seasonal updates introduced new story missions, inversions or gameplay modifiers, weapon balancing, leaderboards, time trials, season-specific events, among others. Despite these events, Anthem hasn't bounced back. In the recent EA conference call, there was no mention of Anthem and what the plans were moving forward. Now going back to the blog, what's alarming is how closely it mirrors the last update we've seen back in September 2019. I say alarming because there are no specifics on how BioWare intends to fix Anthem. Now let's put the texts side by side. First is being proud of the team for the work that they've been doing. Second is knowing and then reviewing what has to be done in order to fix the core issues of the game. Reinventing the core gameplay loop as well as systems requiring a thorough review and reworking versus quick fixes. Now in Corey's blog it says, "Over the next coming months, we will be focusing on a long-term redesign of the experience, specifically working to reinvent the core gameplay loop with clear goals, motivating challenges, and progression with meaningful rewards, while preserving the fun of flying and fighting in a vast science fantasy setting. And to do that properly, we'll be doing something we'd like to have done more of the first time around, giving a focus team the time to test and iterate, focusing on gameplay first. They probably knew a year ago that Anthem had fundamental issues. The problem here is not being able to fix these issues a year after the game's release. BioWare continues to send the same message that they will be able to do something about it, but that message just isn't clear. Third is moving away from the current events model, moving away from full seasons and moving away from acts. In the meantime, we will continue to run the current version of Anthem, but move away from full seasons as the team continues towards the future of Anthem. We'll keep the game going with events, store refreshes, and revisiting past seasonal and cataclysm content, starting with our anniversary towards the end of the month. Committing to step away from developing future seasons is actually promising because at least now, BioWare will be able to fully focus on fixing Anthem. Now, the risk here is driving away their current player base because no significant updates or seasons will be released anytime soon. This also brings into question if BioWare should shut down Anthem or not to work on Anthem 2.0, similar to what Square Enix did for Final Fantasy XIV. Last is appreciating the feedback they get from the community to continue to improve Anthem. Now, what's good about this is the community has been vigilant in giving feedback. What BioWare can do is to leverage on this to make Anthem a good game. We can only hope that BioWare can do their Magic 2.0 on Anthem, similar to what other developers did for Final Fantasy XIV and No Man's Sky. For those unaware, Final Fantasy XIV's Realm Reborn update in 2013 fixed many of the issues that plagued the title. Questing and combat became fun, and both the graphics and the class system were improved. The restart was universally praised as the much-needed fix to save the game. Years later, it is one of the most popular MMORPGs around. Similarly, No Man's Sky was a mess at the start. Unclear objectives, repetitive gameplay, and uninteresting randomly generated locations were just some of its problems. Its initial release had largely negative reviews from players on Steam, 29,619 negative reviews versus 20,239 positives. No Man's Sky's next update introduced a working multiplayer mode, community events, near-limitless base building options, a new third-person perspective, and tons of character customizations. While the game's Steam page has not yet fully recovered, it still sits at a mixed review status. Recent players have been giving it a lot of much-deserved praise. These are just two stories of game developers who were able to turn the tide to fully fix their games. I just hope it isn't too late for BioWare to make this right for their fan base. So that's it for today, guys. I'm Wisa. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe and hit the notifications bell to receive updates on the channel. I will be back this week for more game news. Have a great day ahead.